Good morning, everybody, and this is your DAX day trade setups for today. So all the way back in the chaos. If you just look to the left, you can see this has been going on since April, and we are not getting through it. And if I just drop back to the weekly, you'll see this was the area where we got the all-time highs, but you can see how the volatility started coming in before the 2021 crash. On the bigger view, we've recovered all the losses essentially. But again, we are extremely overbought with diversions at the moment and inside bar engulfing bar here on the weekly. So it doesn't look very pretty at all. Just going to add this area in here. You can see that was a support, and that's what we're finding as resistance at the moment. So, a drop below that, then I would expect us to try and find some support lower down. And that would be something like that. To be honest, there's a gap here as well. That's one gap, and then there's just multiple gaps all the way down this move, which is a little bit of a worry. Typically, these gaps do get filled, and I mean, even this one, you can see here with the COVID drop, it came back. This one hasn't been filled yet, nor is this one, but this one has been filled. Anyway, just pay attention to it. This is not a pretty picture that we're seeing at the moment, so I definitely would not be holding any longs at the moment. If we just drop down to the 8 hour and start looking at what structure we have, again, bottom of range. So we've had two breakouts to the upside of this range, which is there, and both of them have failed. So I would argue, we start dropping below this 15,723. I think not so much the bottom's going to fall out, but I think we're in for a bit of a bigger pullback, which is going to be healthy, especially on the weekly. If you look at this on the 8 hour, crossover the moving averages and below the 155, only thing bullish at the moment is the oscillators, which have grouped to the downside. But as we all know, oscillators can stay overbought or oversold for an extended period of time. So that is why they are called indicators. They just indicate what might be happening. You then need to look for your support and resistance levels. So if we get the 3 hour up, you can see we've had a pretty solid break of the 155 EMA firstly, and we've also got a fairly decent crossover, and we are respecting the moving averages to the downside. There's lots of support to the left, so you've got to be careful here. We've got one pin bar there plus another pin bar with diversions. That is rather bullish. So I suspect we are probably going to do some form of a little range bounce here. And this makes sense since it is the bottom of the range, although these tails that extend below this level of 15,723 can also be the range bottom. So that's why you typically don't want to be trying to guess that you're breaking to the downside on a range, because it very rarely happens that you get it right. So we do have a trend line here as well. If you draw that one in there, I'm not going to do it now. I don't want to be distracted by diagonals just yet. And then the next thing is the hour. You can see big move down, confusion, drop, just missed this this low here, but buyers came in off it, pull back, gap. Look at the moving averages, they're still pointing to the downside. Look at my oscillator starting to group the upside. I suspect we are probably going to be bouncing off structure here for a continuation down. So let's just get that structure in. It looks like the zone. You can see we did test it yesterday, so just going to extend it to that swing low there. And before we get the levels, don't forget to drop that thumbs up. Just hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. We do this every morning, and say hi in the comments. Do appreciate the banter that we do get going sometimes. Anyway, down to 15 minutes. So Friday was very much a big up and down day, typical Friday price action. Now, there's a couple of things here. So the first thing is there is a pretty big, could call it cup and handle, could call it inverse head and shoulders. Doesn't really matter which way you look at it, but it is an attempt at a rounding bottom here. Oscillators disagree. They are indicating a move down. The hour is also disagreeing, saying that we should see a move to the downside. So for this thing to validate, I'd want to see price break above 15,879. And probably 15,928 as well, before coming back to test, and then I will look at that for an opportunity to the upside, more than likely just to test this level up here at 1600. Now remember, there is a diagonal here, so I suppose let's just get that diagonal in. The big question is, which one are we going to use? Because you've got that one which has been broken and tested, and then you have that one which has been broken and tested, and then you have that one which probably looks like the right one. No, I'm going to delete that. Sorry, it's not clear enough. Definitely not clear enough for me. So let's just use the horizontals. And so basically what we're looking for is, if we reject this area, okay, so I expect this gap to close, to be honest. So at market open, I think this gap's going to close. Then you need to wait and see whether we get a rejection up here, or if one of these other levels comes into play. So one of these tails here comes into play. That's when I'd be looking for move down, a rejection there. Then I'm definitely looking for another move down to test the lows here, and possibly even a little bit lower. So that's that side. And if you look at it to the upside, I'd want to see us get above, as I said, these two levels here. So 15,92628 and 15,879. Either way, it's going to be a little bit, I think it's going to be a little bit chaotic. I don't think it's going to be much of a strong move it's going to happen. But if you pay attention to the 5 minutes, I mean, look at this. It's just hammering to the downside, so, and then back to the upside. So yeah, it's going to be messy, guys, as far as I'm concerned. Looking at the 5 minutes, we probably should be looking for support off the gap or something like that for a move to the upside. But we are in a range, so we're in a very strong range. And if you just drill out to, I mean, the daily is probably a better picture of this. Just drill out to a higher time frame, and you can see the area of support here. So, you know, to break through this stuff and come back and test it, it's going to take something really extraordinary. This has been going on since April, so 3 months that it's been doing this in this zone. And then if it does drop lower, it's going to get caught by these tails anyway. So be very, very careful. It could shoot down, it could just turn here. It is range bound trading, so you've got to be very careful. Play the low time frames, make sure that your price action is correct. So you're looking for those inside bars, pin bars, or engulfing bars off the level, and then you're taking the trade on the break of that structure with a tight stop, and I would say smaller positions than if you were in a trend. Anyway, hope that helps, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow morning. Cheers for now.